Hello and welcome all. I'll just wait for a moment while we come into the room, understanding it is a late and cold part of the week for many of us. Beautiful. Well, we will have people joining us shortly as well. So just to make sure we're respecting your time and our beautiful speaker Maria's time, I just wanted to get started and welcome you all to the last event in our 2025 Education Summit. This is actually something we'll be sharing out throughout the year. This is an important topic and opportunity. So we'll explain to you exactly what we're doing and how and why we're doing it in a moment. But before we do that, I just want to acknowledge the Aboriginal people and traditional landowners. I'm coming to you from Gadigal land, and we really do respect and acknowledge the power and the community of the Aboriginal people, how they have learned from and with each other, how they engage with nature, and how they have continued to evolve and learn as a people and to share on with us. So we really want to pay respects to elders past, present and emerging, and any Aboriginal people within the room today. So thank you for joining us. This session today, basically having gone through a series of discussions throughout the week and many different things happening in the wellbeing landscape throughout the year, we wanted to come to have an opportunity to speak in more detail about what do we do with this information? How do we really set ourselves up better to make change? So as I've mentioned throughout the series, and we mentioned in a lot of our communications, Wellbeing Australia is about positive, proactive strategies for managing wellbeing, acknowledging when we're up and we're in a great space, but also acknowledging when we're really struggling. The value of this is about us being able to respond with whatever is happening in our life and those surrounding factors that are occurring as well. So rather than just anticipating or expecting things that are not necessarily going to happen, it's about really working with what's happening and becoming very present in what we're doing. So this afternoon, we welcome back the lovely Maria. Maria, welcome.
Thank you. It's cold over here also, but thank you.
Cold everywhere. We're ready for winter. So Maria and I are going to work through a bit of a process to guide you guys through a plan of being able to audit where you're at now, but also plan forward for what you could possibly do. Maria, I'm going to share some slides. Do you want to just share with the attendees why is there value in doing this?
So it's so important to do our own audit. You know, we audit our organizations, we audit so many things, but one thing that we forget to do is audit ourselves. And when we audit ourselves, we reflect on where we're at. We do that self-check. It is so important to pause and do a self-check regularly. This creates an awareness and reminds us to care for our own well-being. And, you know, if we need to do that first before we can support others.
Yeah, great comment. And we heard that a lot from Dr. Chan this morning when we were talking about burnout data. And what he was really reinforcing was if we aren't prioritizing ourselves and starting to notice what's hitting us, what's impacting us, and what more importantly we can do to change, then we're really just going through the spiral and we're not feeling in control. And that's when burnout genuinely happens. So beautifully said. I also think it's something we don't necessarily do particularly well. So particularly looking at sectors like education or like healthcare, where we are about giving to others, I find a lot of people tend to put off that piece of looking at themselves and prioritize everybody else. So the idea of stopping and thinking about where I'm at and how I'm feeling, it's not the first thought. It's not even the second or third thought. Yeah, there's so many other things happening. Do you find that as well?
Absolutely. And for some reason, there's this thinking that it takes so long. You know, I haven't got the time. But hopefully today we'll be able to show you how quick it can be, and that you don't have to share it with everybody, or you can just do it for yourself, just so that you are aware of where you're at. And sometimes before you go into a meeting, or before you're going to catch up with a young person, or whatever you're going to do, by doing this self-check, what happens is then you can say, okay, I just need 5 more minutes to breathe before I go in, or so you don't become that reactive person.
Yeah. And then you feel more productive and more in control as well, right? So it gives you a better control from it. So we're here for you guys. So if anyone in the room has a reflection as we're going through, or is uncomfortable, or is really comfortable, whatever it might be, please share in the chat any questions, any comments, any thoughts, anything that you want us to clarify, zone into, or expand on, so we can make sure that you get everything that you possibly can out of it. We also respect, though, that a lot of people do like to remain private in our chats and everything. So the Q&A function is there if you would rather remain anonymous and stay behind the scenes. So Maria, I just might move us forward and you might kick us off on this pulse check.
All right. So let's begin by checking within ourselves. And, you know, you do this quietly. And like I said, you can do it in your office. You can do it wherever. On a scale of 1 to 10, right now, where is your well-being right now, right today, where you're sitting? And while you're thinking about that on that scale, think of one word that captures the biggest challenge with your well-being. So what you're doing is you're centering yourself, you're actually thinking about where you are, so you're being present, and then you are then thinking about one word that just overwhelms. Then what I want you to do is that one word for your, I want you to think of a word for your least challenge. So, and sometimes noticing where we're doing well is just as important. So whilst we're thinking about where is the challenge, where is the least challenge? That's just as important, because we need that. We need both sides. We need that balance. And then have a quick pause. Check gives us a snapshot of the room and of ourselves. And then it helps us to notice what the themes within, you know, with us. Like, is it when I walk into this room, I get anxious. When I sit next to somebody, I get anxious, whatever it may be. And it's really, really important that we do check in before we do something.
That it's interesting, isn't it? Because even that setting that scale, that 1 to 10 sort of piece, we can feel it. We know how we're feeling and where we're at. So being able to label it and name it and see it more clearly does give us an option to go, oh my gosh. So, you know, there's a lot happening with a lot of people that I've been speaking to in the last few weeks. They to be feeling like they're at a 5 at the moment. It's okay. Sometimes we're at a 4 or a 5 or a 3, aren't we, Maria?
Absolutely. And it's okay to be vulnerable. You know, it's okay to say, I'm not doing okay today. That's okay, because once you acknowledge it, then you can do something about it. It's when we're not acknowledging something, then we can't do something about it. And so that's really important.
Good comment. And because we're so used to, particularly in education, marks and expecting that I should be aiming for a 10, then sometimes I feel like I'm failing if I'm not hitting the 10, or I want to anticipate that I'm at the 10. A lot of people I've been speaking to lately will say to me, I feel like I'm at a 10, but it's actually overwhelming me. You know, like I feel like I'm so fulfilled by everything I'm doing. I'm now consumed by it. And so that describing the biggest well-being challenge, for some people, it is whirlwind, you know, it's just spiraling and exhaustion or fatigue or emotions and all of those sorts of pieces.
Absolutely. And you know, if we put so much pressure on ourselves, and you know, there's an expectation. There's so many of us that has this expectation, you know, well, I'm in this field, I should know. You know, I know once upon a time I did that, you know, and it wasn't until then I had to stop and reflect and say to myself, whose voice am I actually listening to in my head? And then once I said that to myself, I realized that I was listening to my own voice. Therefore, I was doing that to myself. It wasn't anyone else, it was myself.
Yes, such a good comment.
And that's when you can start doing it. So, so one of the things that I use is the Thrive framework. I think it sort of breaks it down quite well. It's a framework that over time I want to introduce into the school here, to SASSY with the staff. Staff hasn't been introduced yet. This is new, so you're seeing it before my own staff. So so our wellbeing approach is grounded in the Thrive framework. We're doing more and more work around this framework here. If we go to the next slide, Kathryn, I've broken it down where you know, obviously T stands for trust and psychological safety, the foundation for people to feel safe and valued. It is so important. You know, we have to have an organization, whether it's for young people, you know, in our schools, or whether it's for staff, that it's safe to make mistakes. It's okay. It's safe to be heard. It's safe to say, I don't know. And without any retaliation or judgment. And that is a big thing in an organization, and it always affects your well-being.
And that trust piece is so important to us as humans, right? It's the number
100%.
one thing people will say to me when they're struggling with a new leader, or they're struggling in a new role, or even in relationships, right? People will say, I don't feel like I'm trusted, or I don't feel like I can trust them. And so if I don't have that comfort in that space, well, that vulnerability piece means I'm avoiding taking risks, I'm avoiding sharing my opinion, I'm avoiding saying how I feel.
Yeah, and it's also trusting yourself. You know, you avoid, if you don't trust yourself, then you're not going to speak up. Then you're going to feel like, I'm not sure whether I really know, you know, what I'm saying, or whatever it may be. So that trust is that, you know, if you think about Maslow, you know, hierarchy, that trust is a big thing. It's about, the trust is also about being connected within yourself, being connected in your environment, being connected with other people, and you build those relationships and that trust. You can go to the next one. Yeah. So H is obviously the holistic health support, which is about the overall, the whole person. So acknowledging well-being as a more than a physical health. You know, as soon as we think about well-being, we're thinking, oh, I've got to go and exercise, I've got to go and do this. But what about the mental well-being? What about the social? What about the emotional, the financial? You know, all of those will impact on us. And it's so important that we take a holistic approach to our own well-being, not just of others. You know, we're all very good at saying, yep, I've got to look after this person and they need that holistic, but what about us? What about ourselves? How do we give back to ourselves? How do we fill our own cups? Because if we just keep emptying our cups and not filling it up, then we're going to, you know, just go lower and lower and lower, and that's not good for us.
It's also acknowledging, right? Because well-being, we talk of it in a very robust way. We talk of it in a very holistic and complete way in terms of all those different impacts. But there's so much flooded in the market about well-being. There's really wellness and buzzwords and those sorts of pieces where people feel like, oh, gee, I just need to eat better. Gee, I need to go to the gym, or these tokenistic things. Whereas actually at the moment, a lot of the people that I'm working with, financial well-being is the heaviest weight on them.
Right.
They feel like they can't change jobs. They feel like they can't pay their mortgage or rent. They feel like their spouse, their partner, their children is absorbing the
That's
cost
right.
for whatever reason. And it may link back to physical health, right? If I've got medical needs, well, all of a sudden I've got to have the money to be able to deal with medical needs, but then I can't work. So there's this cycle, but it actually is coming back to that root of one particular area.
That's right. It sure does. And if you think about it, you know, it starts with the financial, but then it will go into that mental, which then goes into the emotional, which then will go into the physical. And it's just that cycling of effects. So it's so important that we take the whole holistic approach when we look after ourselves also.
Yep, absolutely.
R is for recognition and purpose. You know, people thrive when they feel seen and connected to meaning. You know, when there's meaning in your work, when there's purpose in your everyday, whether you're at work, whether you're at home, whatever, you know, where you have an intent and there's the purpose in that intent, you know, because people want to be seen. They want to feel connected. They want to feel appreciated. You know, it doesn't mean they need, you know, all these accolades, but what they do need is a thank you or I see you. And I think, you know, feeling valued, you know, whether you're at home, whether you're at work, is so important. And every day, just day-to-day basic tasks, when they have meaning, it just fills that cup up for you.
And there's so much research around that, right? There's so much data that's showing us actually meaning and purpose drives us post stress points and traumas as well. So post-pandemic, post 9/11, those sorts of things, we get this spike of a change in our philosophy of what's important to us back to meaning and purpose. So you know, you and I use motivation maps and youth maps in our work. And what we see in education, in healthcare, and a lot of the giving sectors is purpose is the number one thing that I'm driven by.
Absolutely.
So I need to feel like there's a connection. So once I get into schools, I'm you know, a young person learning to be a teacher, for example, or a teacher's aide, or, you know, administrator within an office, anything where I'm in that young people space. And then I get in there and there's all this red tape and there's all this administration and there's all this governance that I'm sort of drowning in. And I can lose that sense of connection to purpose. And that really can hit us. The recognition piece is so key because, again, going back to those drivers, and it fits with Seligman's framework as well. We need to have recognition. We need to see and feel that we've accomplished things, but we're also really humble, right? So we don't want a big note. We don't want to be stood up in front of 100 people, 200 people. Like you said, that really polite, kind, specific praise of, oh my gosh, that when you did that, that meant a lot to me. It's huge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I is for individual flexibility. You know, everyone's well-being needs are different. Flexibility makes it possible. We cannot have, even in an organization such as SASSI, we cannot have one way of doing things. It's individualized. So individual flexibility is personalized work approaches, adapted arrangement, flexible career pathways. Look, you know, do I want to, you know, want the best staff leaving? No. But you know what? If I really, really care for the well-being of these people, then I will celebrate with them and support them. And that's really, really important. It's about respecting them. It's about respecting their diverse needs. It's about their growth. And it's about not taking it personal, because it's not about me. It's about them. So that personalized work approach is really, really important. V is for value alignments. When your values align with the organization you're with, the energy and the motivational flow becomes natural, because the organization values are really, really important. I know that tomorrow we've got some work to be done on ours, to make sure that everybody's aligned to it. And that's so important. Leaders, models, wellbeing behaviors, you know, they are important. Us, you know, you know, whether it's the young person or whether it's the staff, that well-being and being aligned with everything we do is like the foundation. You know, it doesn't go against our own values. We can see where we're going. We know it's okay. And so we keep going.
And it gives us that vision, right? So Darren last night was sharing about organizational values through wellbeing. And he was saying it links back to that I for individuality and all of that recognition in those pieces. But having the clear organizational values helps me know if I'm on that journey and how I'm on that journey and what my piece is. And it's one of the things that I find we always have to really reflect back. Yes, this is the values of the organization and this is the goal of what we're trying to achieve, but my role is equally important to others. So I do a lot of work with non-teaching staff in schools as well. And one of the things that I find fascinating is this almost language around separation of teaching and non-teaching staff, whereas we need everybody in every organization from 1 to 100, 200,
absolutely,
400, whatever it is. We need every single staff member. Everybody is delivering to the purpose of the organization.
And I think it's so important, not only the organization values, but your own, that you are in check with your own values. And if something goes against those values, that you then reflect on the why are they, and what can you do about it? You know, otherwise you're always going to be hitting yourself against those values.
Yeah, beautiful.
And then E is environment and culture. you know, this is what like the environment culture is like the soil, is like the foundation. It's in which everything grows. It's inclusive, it's supportive culture, safe physical spaces, and biggest thing is fostering connections and belongings, those relationships. And that's where, you know, having a rich culture will help all of that grow, you know, and that helps your own well-being. You know, it will help to give back to your own well-being, you know, fill up your cup. So being visual.
Yeah, we love a visual. We're all visual.
Being visual, and this is a lot of the times how I make things make sense in my head. If every garden, so we're all got our own gardens, and every garden starts with a single seed of intent. All right. So the well-being is like a garden. It begins with the intention, a seed we choose to plant. That's what it all belongs in. The rain, if you have a look at the rain, represents compassion and recognition. Without these, growth withers. So it's okay to have at times, if it's raining and you're feeling a bit low, that's okay. But as long as you've got fairness and compassion, recognition is really important. The flowers are each one of us, our awareness, our unique strengths and potential. You know, that's what makes us come alive, and that's our intent. Obviously, the roots are our core values and sense of purpose, and they hold us steady. They are the crux of things, like they hold us straight up. The foundation or the soil is our environment. Healthy soil allows everything else to flourish, so we will flourish. Of course, you know, even the sunshine is more about leading ourselves, and also having good leadership within your organization, but also being a good leader for yourself, advocate for yourself, standing up for yourself, setting boundaries for yourself is all part of it. And it's really, really important. And so when we talk about well-being, we're really talking about nurturing a living ecosystem type of thing, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I love that comment about that personal leadership, because it's the same as the recognition. Something I feel we don't do well is recognize ourselves, you know, driving home. You know what? I'm really proud of how I did that. Or that was nice feedback that I got. Or I feel like I did a good job on. Those sorts of things where we validate ourselves is equally important as those things that we're getting from others.
And how many of us feel uncomfortable when we say, I've done a really good job, I'm really appreciative of myself, or whatever it may be, or I'm really looking good today, I'm feeling great. It makes us uncomfortable, but that's what we need to practice.
Absolutely.
So the caretakers are skilled gardeners. The skilled gardeners is every thriving garden needs a gardener. For us, these are our supporters, they're our families, our friends, our leaders, colleagues, mentors, whoever else. And great supporters don't just maintain, they nurture us, they encourage, they cultivate growth. And they become a really big part of our own well-being. When leaders act like skilled gardeners, they create the conditions where people can thrive. And that's part of you too. It's not just others, you as a leader within yourself. You know, this metaphor reminds me, it's not only the individual's responsibility. Well-being is a shared practice. Well-being, you know, we can do so much, but we need others to help. And so it's really important that we share that. And we say, I need this to grow. I need whatever it is that you need.
Yeah, beautiful.
So here's some action plans for you to take away. And if we reflect, what's the state of your soil right now? the environment around you. What is the state? Have a think about that. Are your roots, which are your values and your sense of purpose, clear and strong? How well are you tending to your flowers? Now, your flowers is yourself. So how well are you tending to yourself? Who are your gardeners? Those that support you. And remember that every change starts with one small seed of intent. What seed could you plant today to change something in your well-being?
Beautiful. And how important are each of those elements? Like I love the visuals of being able to see and feel it, because when I was watching that, and it's classic, we're such deficit-based people. I was watching that slide that was talking about our gardeners and our supporters, and I was actually thinking of how often we find ourselves around people that drain us, who are almost poisoning our soil, and that feeling of not sure where to go, that's where that leadership comes in, isn't it? Me being strong enough to go, actually, you're not helping me at this, and it could be just at this point.
Yeah. And we I call them energy zappers, those ones that just drain that energy. And what we can do about that is, obviously we don't want to be rude and dismissive, but we can say, that's an interesting point, I'll get back to you. And then just remove ourselves and have time to think about what was said and how you're going to respond. Because it's when we get overwhelmed that we're just going to get quite anxious and get heightened. It's no point. Just stay calm. Have a little bit of a tool in the back of your mind that says, you know what, this is how I'm going to respond to this person, and get back to them.
Yeah. And that question 3 about tending to yourself, that is something we are not great at, right? And it is something that I always reflect. People think it means we need the week away or this magic, some magic time we can't invent. I read a fantastic book years ago when I first had my daughters, and it was Pressure Cooker Changed My Life, and it was by Jessica Rowe, the one from the news who had a big breakdown. And it was all about 10-minute windows. And that was game-changing for me. It was this accessibility of tending to yourself. So 10 minutes meant you don't have to race through the shower when you've got a young baby. You don't have to scoff down your food at lunchtime. Actually taking the 10 minutes to sit, reflect, enjoy a bit of sunshine, read, whatever it is that is important to you at that point, but not feeling that sense of race. And I think that that's something we're not strong at. How do you find that, Maria? What do you think about that, tending to yourself?
Absolutely. Look, there are days where I've got to put my own hand up. And like I said, I'm very big on being open and honest, because I'm not perfect. And I will say, there are some days I'm not great at it. And then there are other days I'm better at it. But I think we get what happens, and I find that with myself, it's like a washing machine. We just get, we get just stuck, and it goes round and round and round, and we don't stop, and we don't breathe and go, hang on a minute, I need to stop, breathe, think about where I'm at right now. Am I here, or where am I? And but we forget to do that because days get busy and people want us from left and right. But really, it's really important that we keep our roots, very, very centered, and grounded, because that's what keeps us strong and clear.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Maria. Is there any closing thoughts you wish to share with everybody?
I think in closing, I think the one thing that I would really recommend is that have a think about when you need that 5-10 minutes, or whether you need to do something for yourself and you feel bad that you're going to do it, or you feel guilty. Think about, if I take that 5 minutes, is anyone going to get hurt? Is anyone going to, something bad happen? Because at the end of the day, I will be better when I come back, that 5-minute break, where I just go and feed my own soul. So it is really, really important.
So true.
Yeah.
And isn't it funny, because going into a tough conversation or a new class, or just getting through a report I don't want to write, or whatever it actually is, taking that few minutes I'm actually quicker at doing it. I'm actually more productive. I feel clearer in what I'm doing, but I do have to just take that little window.
Yeah, and I find that at times one of the things that works for me is having something like a tic tac where if I'm working on the computer or whatever I'm doing and I'm really engrossed, by putting that tic tac, my senses are saying, oh, there's something going on, which then alerts me. And then I will get up and go and do something or go for a walk or whatever, because all of a sudden I've come out of that washing machine and go, okay, I need to go.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm a pot of tea person. I love a pot of tea.
All right.
It makes you become present. You've
Yeah.
got to stand and wait for it to boil. You've got to
Correct.
select your teapot. You pick your cup that makes you feel good. Like it's a strange thing, but it's so soothing because you immerse yourself to stand still for a minute or two.
Absolutely.
And you are conscious of your decision and you pick your tea that's going to uplift you or whatever you actually need at that point in time.
That's right. And your brain you've given your brain a break, take some deep breaths. Breathing is really important, and yeah, be gentle on yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That's a brilliant work and so helpful. And I don't think it matters where we are. If I'm a young person at school, if I'm a senior executive, there's so many ways we can use that. And we're very fortunate to have so many parts of our community that take our sessions and roll it out across all staff. And so for anyone watching from a staff perspective, we hope you enjoyed that. Thank you to Maria for today, but also for the rest of the summit where you've been involved. Thank you to our other speakers, to Darren, to Andrew, to John, and to poor Peter, who we had some tech problems, but Peter and I will be recording and sharing that session on Monday, so I'm very excited about that. We hope everyone's enjoyed the summit, has been able to walk away with some glimmers of new ideas, strategies, hope, and techniques to be able to apply through. We'd love your feedback. You'll receive a survey at the end of this session. Please give us the feedback so that we can keep improving and delivering to you. And everyone who's registered for any of our sessions over the week will receive not only access to the recordings, but also some really specific and dedicated resources to be able to apply into your own world in your context. So once again, thank you, Maria. Thank you to everyone who has attended and for the feedback we've received throughout the week. Have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.